ground rules about the meeting. I will be recording this meeting for members who may miss the session, and closed captioning is provided. So when you speak, please enunciate clearly into your microphone, as this will help us make the meeting work effectively. If anyone ever needs any other accommodations, though, please let us know, and you can send us an email at kramer.liz@gmail.com or christyrholland@gmail.com. So now that that's out the way, again, welcome to the Community Mobility Committee. As a reminder, this is a place for residents and interested individuals to advocate for and learn about mobility and transportation issues in the city of St. Louis. So as we have conversations, please be respectful and in your questions and in your conversations. And we are grateful to have so many people here from the city, and we just encourage everyone participating to be respectful of everyone's hard work and their efforts as well as varying opinions. So when you speak, please avoid using jargon and any acronyms. And if you're going to use any technical terms, any technical transportation terms, please define them as you speak or in the chat. And if you have a link for it, share that as well. And we do this because not all of our members are familiar with the language. We just want to make sure everyone can actually contribute and participate in the conversation. Also, please be mindful of time. We will be encouraging more follow-up to happen outside of meetings if needed. So we'll be taking notes and we'll just direct those questions where they're supposed to go. Please use the chat to share questions and responses. We will be collecting these later as well to include in the meeting notes and to send back questions to whoever they need to go to. So with that said, we are lucky to have the partnership of the city staff, the mayor's team, and a number of our auditors here in our efforts. So we're going to ask each of you to say hey and give a quick introduction. So I will throw it first to Scott. Hey, Scott.
Good afternoon. I'm Scott Ogilvie, City of St. Louis Planning and Urban Design Agency, Program Manager for Complete Streets. And I see Andrew Lackey also on.
So hello, I'm Andrew Lackey, and I'm the Deputy Commissioner for the Office on the Disabled for the City of St. Louis. And I am going to pass it to John Kohler.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm John Kohler, Planning and Programming Manager for the Board of Public Service, and I will pass it to Alderwoman Schweitzer.
Thanks, John. I'm Ann Schweitzer. I'm Alderman of the First Ward and Chair of the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee. I'll pass it to Alderman Browning.
Thank you all. Michael Browning, Alderman for the 9th Ward, Vice Chair of the Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee. Sorry, I just got here. I'm looking at who else is here. Whoever else is from the city, please go next.
I think we may have gotten to the end, Alderman Browning.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I do think that's everyone. So again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining. All right, so our minutes from our last month, we did include it with the agenda in the email, but here it is again in the chat. If anyone has had a chance to read over, are there any questions or concerns that we'd like to talk about? None? Okay. All right, so next, we're just going to jump right into the full meeting. So in the past, we've been having special guests come in and talk to us about different bills that are on the table, different transportation issues, and we normally make a segment available for everyone to share their concerns about what's happening in the city. Today, we're just going to take the full meeting to have that full conversation. So please share any concerns that you've had around transportation issues, mobility issues in St. Louis, and share your thoughts and opinions about everything that we've talked about. In the agenda email, I sent out what we've been talking about over the last year. So some of those things include automated enforcement exploration, active road safety audits, different transit advocacy that's happening, the mobility and transportation master plan, the St. Louis Ram settlement plan, as well as Board Bill 120. And a plethora of other things. So we are going to share the screen so that everyone can see the conversation that's happening around this. But if you don't feel like you want to talk, but you still want to contribute your thoughts or concerns to this conversation, just feel free to add them. Liz just put the link in the chat. So the way that you add a note is by clicking the little sticky note. It's the 1, 2, 3, 4th icon on the left. Click it, choose your favorite color, and paste it wherever you would like, and simply type, like Liz is doing. So with that, I will open up the floor. Let's have a discussion. If no one wants to start, I will start. I do want to just lift up my friend in prayers. So last week she lost her friend to a traffic crash in South St. Louis. So it's just been a transition for her. And then we heard about another incident that happened this past weekend. So I just want to lift up anyone who has experienced any traffic violence or crashes and has lost a loved one just due to our system. So praying for you. If you need any support, please let us know how we can be there and supportive.
Yeah, I'd like to uplift. I know we discussed it a few months ago, but Mark Barnett was a member of my neighborhood, someone I knew, and lost his life in a traffic violence incident. And still reeling from that, but related, I went to Hartford Coffee in Tower Grove South a couple of days ago and noticed that one of the light poles in front of the coffee shop had been destroyed by a vehicle collision, and part of the vehicle was still sitting there. And I texted it to a friend who goes to that shop with me, and he said, "That's the pole that I walk my bike to." So just highlighting how the destruction in our city by vehicles continues to affect all sorts of things, making it more difficult for people to bike, both in safety and in terms of the infrastructure that gets damaged when we have vehicles going too fast. So, on the note of automated traffic enforcement, I understand there's a lot of discussion to be had around that issue. But I also just want to highlight that vehicle speeds need to come down, and we need to do that one way or another. And infrastructure is one way to do it, but that takes a long time. So I'm open to hearing from the community on that, but I also am looking to explore every solution that we can.
I agree with what you just said. I feel like in the city of St. Louis, we need to do like a campaign. I'm the chairperson of the Safe Streets Committee, part of CMC here, and we've been brainstorming. We're going to meet on Monday on Zoom and to talk about, we need to come up with some guerrilla campaign. And that's another thing with the Ram settlement money. Maybe we can do a PR, go out to bid and hire a PR firm, because nothing is changing. South Grand, well, we are still having multitude of issues with running red lights, crashes. It doesn't end. And we are what the funds are going to be used for all this infrastructure improvements. And we've done everything: road diets, lower speeds, the streets department did a great job changing the synchronization of the traffic signals. Is wonderful, but we need to do something now because people are still driving recklessly. Nothing's changing, and I agree, it takes years for infrastructure improvements to happen and to be implemented. So we need to do a campaign, get people thinking differently how they drive. I mean, some people, I don't even think they even realize they're running a red light when I make eye contact with them on South Grand. But something needs to change now. And the only thing I can think of is coming up with a guerrilla campaign to get people's attention.
Yeah, I'm gonna chime in on an incident that happened to me yesterday, but it's a good example of what we've all witnessed to various degrees. And it highlights the potential impacts to taking lives when we get these drivers that are driving so recklessly and carelessly. But I was on Loughborough coming off 55, headed alongside Cronolette Park to Leona, which is the cross street on the west side of Cronolette Park. I had my right turn signal on, and I didn't even see this driver going about 60 miles an hour in the shoulder. Just missed me as I'm beginning my right turn. He blew right through the stop sign at 60 miles an hour, it felt like. But if there were any pedestrians, or even me, if I'd have just been a fraction of a second earlier with the turn, I would have collided with that person. But it's such a egregious behavior that seems like the penalties for using your vehicle to potentially cause harm should be explored on those the bad behavior and those people doing that. That's all.
Grateful you're still here with us, John.
I know this might be coming later in the agenda, so I apologize. Is there any update with the bringing back the red light cameras? The last presentation was really well done. Casey did a great job. But my concerns, it sounds like it's going to be a giant paperweight because the Missouri Supreme Court laws. So if we're going to invest all this money on bringing back red light cameras, and if we hit a brick wall with, actually ticketing people, I just think it might not be the best thing, it feels like. So I was curious what everyone's thoughts were from the presentation.
So happy to chime in there.
Mhm.
My understanding is that we resolved the constitutional issues in
Okay.
how we handle this by having an officer write the actual ticket instead of having to be automated. That was one issue that was identified. The other was identifying the driver of the vehicle. And I think technology is aiding us in that with the ability to take better pictures, higher resolutions, AI software, you name it. We can better identify who is the person violating the issue. And so I think we're going to work our way around that constitutionality issue, and that shouldn't be a problem this time.
That's great. Thank you.
I guess while we're on the alderman on that, Alderman, do you all have updates on kind of the next steps in process for how the 105 and 106 will be heard?
So it was supposed to be this week, even today, it was supposed to be today, but the sponsor of the bill asked for more time. So he hasn't given me another date. But I'll make sure, I know I communicated with some of you on this call about that, and I will make sure that this committee is informed of the next date, and I hope that it's soon.
Thank you. Dennis?
Hi, yeah, I kind of want to go back to something that I brought up and asked the last time, but the answer, and I think it was Grace from the mayor's office. So I asked, if it's possible to have a easily accessible list where we can see updates from transportation projects, whether it's from ARPA money or some of these outstanding projects that have lingered, like 7th Street since 2018 and Tucker Cycle Track. And I think Grace's answer was something along the lines, they're going to look into funding from ARPA to do that. But to me, I don't understand why BPS on its website under the InDesign section, where it does have updates, but it hasn't been updated in a long time, can't update. And I also emailed Mr. Bradley, the director of BPS, and he said that BPS updates the mayor's office, but then the mayor's office will update the public as they see fit. And that's a direct quote from his email. And I thought that was just really strange. Why is this such a secret topic that the public can't know what is a status of a design project or whatever it is? So maybe the two alders on the call, if you guys can figure out a way that, the list of transportation projects that we've dedicated money to from ARPA funds, and any other ones that are in design or in bidding or whatever, why can't there just be a simple list on BPS website, on street department website, whatever it is, that we can just check and see? My only way to figure out a status of a project is if I email John or somebody at BPS and say, hey, what's the status on 7th Street? Or what's the status of this and that?
Well, thank you, Dennis, for bringing that up. I agree that would be great. It certainly would solve a lot of questions that I get as alderman. Where are my speed humps? Where in the process is that stop sign? I've seen cities like, I want to say Cincinnati, has a site where you can watch all active traffic calming projects in the city and see what their status is. It's not even that complicated. It's like a little map that you can see, like a green line to show that it's in progress, or a yellow line to say it's about to start. Gives a little timeline of when things are scheduled for, so that people have an idea of when it's happening. That level of communication goes far with people, and I don't really have an answer why we don't do it yet, but I'm happy to look into that and explore it, because I think it would be helpful to moving things in the right direction in the city and getting people more aware of what we're doing to respond to these daily incidents of traffic violence that we see, and make them feel like the city actually cares about that.
I would also add that the mayor's office is updating the HUD's committee next week, right, Michael? On all of the ARPA spending. So I'll certainly be asking for all of the updates on ARPA spends on some of these traffic and safety projects that have been funded through that. But yeah, I was able to get pretty easily my ward capital, or Ward 1, ward capital, really easily from Board of Public Service when I asked for the projects that have been funded in this ward that I now represent for the last 5 years. That was pretty quick. But the St. Louis Works funding is I have not been able to get that list. So I think some of it is like where certain records are being kept, in the various departments, and getting it all in one place. And I know we've talked about some of the issues with around that topic in general.
So Dennis, I wanted to respond to the inquiries, the BPS on project status. Many of our federally funded projects are on the Board of Public Service website. Hopefully they're being kept current by the project manager and the design division that's assigned to each of those projects. I'm sure some of them aren't day-to-day accurate or up to date. I will pass your message along. How can we get more projects that we're involved with on the website and kept current? I will do that. And then to Alderwoman Schweitzer's point on ward-funded projects, BPS Planning and Programming sends each of the 14 aldermen quarterly reports that shows the status of every project that are being funded through the ward program, and status of where funding stands overall for their ward. And I think we do a pretty good job in updating the aldermen in those reports.
Yeah, I'll add to that. Definitely, BPS does a great job getting the aldermen the information, but I think one of the issues that we have in City Hall is, the point that you had said, somebody said, oh, it's up to the mayor how they disseminate that. And a lot of the communication really does come through the aldermen and the mayor's office departments. So if there's something that you want to know about that's in my ward, or something in a specific ward, you should be able to get that from the alderperson. But obviously, like, ask the alderperson isn't everyone's favorite response, in terms of the preference being a much more trackable, user friendly, available at the tip of your fingers kind of thing. I totally understand what you're asking for.
Yeah, I think it goes back to a point that we as the members of the committee are supposed to kind of be the ones also updating the public on some of these things. And as we go to neighborhood association meetings and talk to people, and it doesn't have to be a point where, when you go to MoDOT's website in East West Gateway, they have a pretty robust schedule of, maps, dates, times. It doesn't have to be that. It can just be 7th Street is in design, or it's gone to bidding, and bids are going to be open this day. So it's just stuff like that. And I constantly get asked by people in downtown is, hey, 7th Street got money in 2018. And I know, it went through bidding. It was $1 million over budget, and then it got redesigned, all this stuff. But I know that because I asked John and John tells me that. Like if somebody else wants to find that out, they either have to know John or they have to know me. So I think just having a easy place where, not an alderman, but anybody, or even the alderman can point you to, hey, go to VPS website, click here, and you'll get a status of these projects. At least maybe even set a dollar amount. Maybe it's just projects over $1 million.
Yeah.
I think one thing that Anne just brought up that sort of raises a bigger set of questions and challenges that we've asked about in the past, and I think there's still a lot of opportunity to improve on, is having a more comprehensive and data-driven approach broadly to transportation projects. Right now, we hear a lot about things getting stuck because it depends on ward capital covering some portion of the costs, or an alderperson being on board, or decisions being made on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. So I think the fact that we will have a mobility and transportation master plan in the near-ish future is really exciting, because that hopefully would be an opportunity for us to have some comprehensive view of like what we're doing as a city and what are the approaches that we're taking and what do we value and prioritize. But I have to imagine that the scope of that plan is probably not going to address all of the structural problems, like who gets what reporting and which money decides what things, and which bits of information do we track and make available to the public, versus which things are really things that the older people decide are important. So I think I guess I would really love to see the Board of Aldermen be really proactive about working with the staff to figure out like where's the fit of the things that need to change within the aldermanic policies in order to match a more comprehensive approach. And I think I don't know the answer to what those things are, but ward capital feels like one part of that. And there's probably a bunch of other policies within that too.
One of the things I've been looking at is, yes, Patrick, to answer your question, we are reviewing past topics and just sharing our thoughts on them. We've gotten a lot of information over the years, but we haven't really had a time to really talk about what that means to us, what that means for us, and what we can do with that. So this is just a chance to talk about it all and get it all out in the open. As I'm thinking about the mobility and transportation master plan and what else? The active road safety audits and even the RAM settlement plan. I'm thinking about ways that we can be more collaborative in the region. I know we're often talking about there being a lack of funding and there being a lack of capacity to get some of this work done. But I saw a news segment sometime this summer from an artist who got a grant to do some artwork in the city, and rather than doing traditional artwork on a building or something, she used it to patch a hole in the street. I thought that was interesting. I was wondering how she was even able to do that. And so it made me think, how else can we partner across the city in different industries and sectors to get some of this transportation stuff done, especially around traffic calming and safety. There's a lot of money being funneled into just the arts culture in St. Louis. So if there's already money there, maybe that can be a way that we can get some of these projects and safety projects and traffic calming projects funded. Not just funded, but also implemented. And I would like to just kind of push the conversation tonight. There is a hearing about the St. Louis RAM settlement plan. We did release a letter about what we would like to see happen with those funds. We sent that all out to you in the email, but if you would like to review it, just click the RAM settlement link that's at the top of this header. And if you have any thoughts that you would like to add to this conversation, just let us know. Like, this is the time to talk about it now before the hearing.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something kind of back to what Rachel was talking about, specifically around just kind of South Grand as an example. Uh, I think if you look at a lot of the things that we've done, going forward, any implementation of traffic calming, road diets, anything like that, can't go halfway because then it ends up not working and you end up with this situation where it doesn't really meet the needs of the people that are there and it ends up unsafe. I mean, South Grand, yes, we slowed it down from 35 to 25, but realistically, that means that most people that are rule followers are probably going 28 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour. And at that speed, any of the non-signalized crosswalks, most people aren't going to be able to cross there because people aren't going to yield to them. So, I mean, we kind of went halfway. We created a pedestrian area, but we still kept a speed limit that is relatively unsafe for pedestrians. With that, we didn't go slow enough. We also kept an entire third lane down the middle of the road, which allows those people that do want to speed, that want to pass, they have a continuous area where they can go around cars. There's no reason that we couldn't have put barriers mid-block there so that it does kind of pinch it down and it creates a situation where you couldn't pass people, you have a little bit less space. It feels like you should be going slower. And it also creates a spot where people can cross the street mid-block and have some safety there. But I just feel like when you look around any of the traffic calming that we've done so far and road diets, it always goes halfway and then it ends up not working. I mean, just north of there on Grand, if you look at the road diet that they did to the area next to Tower Grove Park, I mean, it went from a wide open, 120 feet across or whatever it was, and they added medians, but it's still got a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit, two 12-foot lanes. I mean, you can still go 50 miles an hour down Grand there and feel perfectly like you're not going to hit anything. And people do that often. So I don't know. I just think that whenever we get this plan out, it needs to go all the way. It can't be, you can't make compromises on safety when you're trying to make a safer street.
I mean, I agree with you, but the reason why there's a middle turn lane is because to turn left, it's the left turn lane. That's why there's a middle lane on
No, I'm
South
not,
Grand.
Rachel, I'm not saying that there shouldn't be turns at the stoplights or that people shouldn't be able to turn left or through there. I'm saying that there could be mid-block barriers so that we don't get the people that do 70 miles an hour down the middle lane.
Oh, I agree. I see it
Yeah.
every day. But that's also the way that the ambulances and fire trucks get through, because we are the route to the hospital. And that is why it was designed that way when we did the Great Streets project. But I have been talking to my alderwoman about the purchase of hawks. I brought this up pre-pandemic to the streets department and nothing ever happened. So I'm bringing it up again. And what a hawk is a traffic signal for pedestrians. What's in school in front of Eagle Prep, now Momentum Academy. That traffic signal is only turns red, excuse me, when a pedestrian hits it. So I'm trying to work on getting the funding to put that at Connecticut and Humphrey, because a lot of people do cross there. But also, there's always going to be those crazy drivers. There's always going to be people who just don't care and just going to figure out a way to speed through. And there needs to be consequences for that. And that's what we need to work on. Right now, there's no consequences.
Andrew, your point is well taken about the strategic placement of median, raised concrete medians in the center shared turn lane. That is a tool that we are looking at on some of our ARPA north-south corridors, including this section of Grand, that you could place those in a way that you'll have allow for turning movements and passage of emergency vehicles potentially. And we're doing the same thing, not only in the center median, but in the parking lane where you have long stretches of underutilized parking that people are using as illegal passing. We're building in bump outs to keep that poor passing behavior in the parking lane from occurring.
And that's good to hear. I guess one question I have, has there been any thought of kind of finding those areas and just using the sewer culverts or the shamo pots, whatever you want to call them, for quick implementation to create those bump outs? Because I know that we have those available, and that seems like something that would be quick to deploy and would definitely be a lot cheaper, which allows it to be implemented in more places quickly.
It's certainly possible. Many people deem those as unsightly trash collectors. But I do hear you about the ability to quickly put them in. We do still install those through the street department. But for the larger scale ARPA funded projects, we're looking at more where we can afford it, flexible delineators and raised concrete barriers as funding allows.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right, we have about 10 more minutes for discussion. Please feel free to add to the conversation.
I just want to echo the kind of call for some quicker build materials. I know that there have been some things on like South Grand past, the South Grand Business District, where there's some Jersey barriers that are blocking the center turn lane there. And also, I've seen in the last few years, the city using a lot more of like the rocks in places to try and restrict, dangerous driving behaviors and things like that. And I just think it would be great to have a budget to be able to do those kinds of things for people who are walking and biking too. It seems like a lot of that has been focused just on really erratic driver behavior, and I've not seen the city be able to use that in ways that could actually like improve the mobility of folks who are outside of cars. It's just kind of controlling the people who are driving really dangerously. And I feel like that's a gap that's missing to be able to address those things.
Also, some good news. I just came from the Police Business Association meeting, and Donna Berenger was their state rep. And I asked her, what's the latest where we're at with the taxes being worked into everyone's payment? And January 1st, everyone must work it, every dealership must work it into their car payment plan, that you can't leave without that happening. So January 1st, it goes into effect. So yay, good news.
Rachel, this is Michael Reitner. Could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah. So January 1st, it would be required for all car dealerships to work the sales tax into the loan. Right now, you can still buy a car and not have your sales tax worked into the loan for you just to pay it and go to, City Hall for it. But January 1st, it will be required to work it into the loan.
That's good to hear. That makes me, that brings me to my point about collaboration again. It's good to hear there's collaboration happening. But, I would like to see more coordination and consolidation of efforts. We have a lot of great transit advocacy partners on the local level, state level, but there's a lot. And a lot of us are doing the same work. So I think if we can come together, create one big organization or a few big organizations, maybe we can have a louder voice to really get some things done at a different pace, more productive pace. Okay, we have about 5 more minutes for discussion. If you don't want to speak, that's totally fine. Again, if you want to add a comment, all you do is go down to the sticky note tab. It's the 4th icon on the left. Oop, 1, 2, 3, 5th, I'm sorry, 5th icon on the left. Click it, choose your icon color, and just paste it wherever you would like, and type in the box. Is there anything that we have not talked about this year that you think we need to talk about as a committee next year? Or that is on your radar for next year?
This goes along with the transit advocacy at the local and state level, but I think more coordination between the Citizens for Modern Transit and the Missouri Public Transit Association as the legislative session comes up, that what happens on the state level in terms of transit funding really impacts the St. Louis region. And I think it would be great to see more coordinated kind of advocacy efforts from residents on the CMC towards increased funding for public transit at the state level.
Taylor, is there any other stuff going on at the state level that would be good for this committee to know about?
Yeah, there are some conversations that are starting to evolve around driver's education. So I think that that could be definitely a topic for next year as well.
Taylor, is there any conversation around like, there's driver's education, but like transit education, how to take a bus, how to take train, how to scooter?
There is and I don't know that it's a new program. One of my colleagues just went through the Mobility Managers program, which basically teaches people how to help kind of facilitate like how people get around within different communities around like the OATS system, whatever their local transit organizations are, and tries to help kind of like make it more of a seamless process of like, okay, you've got a medical appointment that's 2 towns over, or on the other side of the state. How do you do that? And so there's like a mobility management course that's evolving. That's also a national trend. So I'm not totally sure what's all encompassed in that, but that could be something for a future topic, is to invite some of the folks that are leading that conversation in Missouri to maybe present about what that looks like for the state.
That's interesting. There's not already, is the Association for Commuter Transit working with you all on that? Or have been involved in the conversation? Because they already kind of do that. They have a transportation demand management certification.
I'm not aware, I'm not positive. Like I said, it's been a colleague of mine that's gone through that recently, so they could be a part of that, but I'm not sure. So I know a lot of their conversations more recently is focused on technology side of things, of like, if you go to search for a transit trip, being able to like see what your options are, because Google often doesn't bring up, how to reserve the OATS bus, if there even is an OATS bus. if there's not a regular fixed route transit service, it just doesn't capture that on any like search function.
All right, we have a couple more minutes. Last call, last call. But as you are dropping in your notes, your ideas, your feelings, just want to let you know that we're taking everything that's being said here seriously, and we will be sharing this with all of our partners and guests that we've had throughout the year, and we'll be using this to guide some of the conversations for next year. So as things move forward, like for example, the mobility and transportation master plan, we'll be looking through what has been said by the committee, what's missing out of the plan, what should be included in the plan, so that, you know, making sure that our voices are heard, that we could really build out some great things in St. Louis and make transportation and mobility just a lot more seamless, a lot more safe and connected. Before we move on to the next thing, are there any final thoughts, questions, concerns? All right. Well, thank you everyone for your ideas, your opinions, your time. Continue to add thoughts as they come up. But now we will move into the next portion, which is our subcommittee updates. So I'll pass it over to Liz.
Okay, great. Thanks, Christy. So I'm going to make a couple of committee-wide updates first before we get into some subcommittee updates. First of all, I will be stepping down at the end of this year from my co-chair role. So thanks to Christy for co-chairing with me, and Christy is planning to stay on, hopefully. But we will be accepting nominations for new co-chair, vice chair, whatever format you want to operate in at the November meeting. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, you want to know more about it, you can send me or Christy an email. We're happy to set up a coffee with you, talk to you on the phone, tell you a little bit about it, what it might mean for you. So if that sounds like a good opportunity, let us know. Second thing, we are going to make some updates to the bylaws. The bylaws were created almost 4 years ago, and they don't quite reflect the way that we operate right now. So we are working on those drafts internally right now. We will share them back to the full committee via the listserv in the next couple of weeks before our November meeting. So folks will have a chance to review them, add comments, raise questions, and then we'll expect that the voting members will vote on those bylaws following the November meeting so that they are adopted before the end of this year. So more to come on that, but just wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming. As a reminder, likely if you're here, you already know this, but we have a Google group that you can join. That's a place that is meant to help improve communication between members about events, things going on, and also share things related to these meetings. So anyone can post in the group. There are some guidelines that we ask you to follow, so please do take a look at the guidelines before you send something in, but you can send things that you want to share that way. It's a good way to make sure it gets out. Okay, those are our full group updates. I'm going to give the engagement subcommittee update on behalf of Dawn and Aubrey. Neither of them could be here today. First up, the engagement subcommittee has put together a youth participation policy. This is a link to it in the chat, and we'll also send it out to the full group. They will welcome any feedback on that policy until November 20th. They're going to make changes in their November meeting before putting the policy in front of the voting members to approve. So if there's any feedback, comments, things you want to say, you can send Dawn an email. Here's Dawn's email. So that's an ongoing policy change. Voting members whose terms are expiring this December, we have a number of people who are in that category, are going to be contacted in early November by the engagement subcommittee about what's next for them. General members who will be eligible to apply as voting members will also be contacted by the engagement subcommittee in early November. And we're going to ask that if people are interested in changing their membership status, that they apply by November 20th, so the engagement subcommittee can review those applications during the November meeting. Those who are recommended as voting members will then be voted in by the voting membership in December. So those are the engagement updates. They will meet again, obviously, in November after November 20th. And if you have any questions, you can shoot Dawn an email. And I am going to hand it over to Rachel to give an update on Safe Streets.
Not much to report. We basically did a recap too at our last meeting, just where we're at and what we've been discussing. But what we pointed out today that I mentioned, we really need to start working on a campaign. So we're gonna, on Monday is our next meeting. So we're gonna start brainstorming ideas and then maybe actually put together like a RFQ, request for qualifications, to say, hey, this is what we're looking for. If we take the Rams money to hire someone, this is kind of like some parameters that we would like. So we're just going to do some brainstorming and talk about how we can really create a marketing campaign around safe driving.
Great, thanks, Rachel. And I dropped your email in the chat if people want to join that meeting on Monday.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are going to change the meeting invitations for the next 2 meetings after this meeting, so no one gets confused. But our November meeting will be November 15th. That's 1 week earlier than normal, because we're assuming that, like us, you don't want to come to a meeting the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And then we will also be moving our December meeting up 2 weeks to December 13th, because we are assuming that, like us, you don't want to attend a meeting between Christmas and New Year's. So look out for those updated calendar invites, and we'll send them along to you shortly. And then the final kind of opportunity to let folks know about, I think we shared this last month, is that East West Gateway is doing the 2024 Coordinated Human Services Transportation Public Survey for the St. Louis region. So folks who use public transit or other transportation services should complete this survey. It's designed to help coordinate those transportation services to enhance mobility for seniors and individuals with disabilities, and to reduce some of the duplications in transportation services. So some of the things that came up in our conversation. So please take that survey if that's relevant to you, and also share with others in your network. Christy, anything else?
We've invited a lot of partners, and other transit advocates in the region have a lot of great work to do. So if you're looking to be more hands-on and rolling up your sleeves, getting dirty, please find a group to be involved in. And if you need contacts, let us know. We can always make an email introduction. But that's all I have. Thank you so much for a productive meeting today. I had a great conversation with you all. And look at that, we have 10 minutes left. Go Wednesday. That is it, everyone. Have a great Wednesday.